Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada. Om Ganganapate Namaha. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwaraha. Guru Deva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sarva Mangala Mangalle Shive Sarvartha Sadike. Sharanye Trambake Devi Narayani Namostute. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Mahalakshmi Rupena Samstita. Namastasya 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 Namo Namaha. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam. Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityar Mukshiyamamritat. Om Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya. Om Shri Hanumanji Maharaj Ki Jai. Welcome to Nitya Satsang. Today is the 16th of October 2025. I want to welcome you all to today's presentation. Continuing presentation on the Ashtanga Yoga. I want to offer my prostrations to all the great sages and to Bhagavan residing in the heart of every single being. We are continuing to examine the glory of Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is the eightfold or eight-limbed yogic process to reach Samadhi. It should be clear what it is exactly. People don't have understanding of it usually. It's a lot of confusion. Nothing to be confused about. Very easy to understand. Ashtanga means eight-limbed. They're limbs of one body. They're all together. All the eight limbs are functioning together. Just like our body, we have limbs. They function together, but there's a sense of separateness in some sense. Hands in some sense are different from legs because of function, but they're all part of the same body. So similarly, the Ashtanga Yoga has multiple angas or stages, you can say, roughly translated that way, but that's not really the right translation. It's a limb. It is a development, but we can think of it as stages. It's okay. So we're starting today, we're looking at, for the next week or so, maybe longer, the niyamas, the second stage. Yeah, we looked at yam already. Now the niyama is personal disciplines, and there's 5 aspects of them. Saucha, Santosha, Tapas, Swadhyaya, and Ishwar Pranidhan. And I will send this information out later today. Very interesting. So Saucha is cleanliness, right? This is an interesting word in itself. What is cleanliness? What do we mean by cleanliness? I think we understand it in terms of, our physical environment. We understand that we can keep our home clean or the environment clean. The concept of cleanliness comes from this word. this word in Sanskrit is shauch. And that comes from the Sanskrit root word S-U-C, shuch, which means to shine, to cleanse, to make bright. It comes from that root word, literally meaning purity, clarity, cleanliness. So all words have their origin and then they develop over time. So in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali in the second chapter, Sutras 40 and 41, Patanjali defines it in 2 aphorisms, 2 sutras. And the first one is that he says that from purity arises distaste for one's bodily level only and disinterest in contact with others. Now this is interesting, how it should not be misunderstood what this means. The purity leads to clarity of mind, cheerfulness, mastery of senses, one-pointedness, and fitness for realization of the self. Right? So, Saucha means, in one sense, it's the purity of the senses. The purity of the body is the cleanliness of the body. That's why we take a bath once a day, twice a day, like that. We keep the physical body clean. Then we also put on some lotion, we put on powders, we put on whatever, just for cleanliness, right? And for maybe good scent and just that there's a good experience of the body. Yes. Of course, body has to be healthy. No doubt about that. Body has to be healthy. Body needs to be clean. But now there's the next stage of cleanliness, and that is at the level of the senses, the cleanliness of the senses. That's a difficult point to understand. What does that mean actually? The cleanliness of the senses. When we say that we have eyes, okay, we see the objects of the world. But aankh ki shuddhata, what is that? Well, that's an interesting question. Shuddha drishti, purified vision, versus polluted vision, versus distorted vision, impure vision. Is there a difference? Yes. What is that purified vision? It is the internal purity of thoughts. It is the Saucha. There's actually a word in Sanskrit here. So there's the Bahya Saucha, which is the external cleanliness, body, environment, habits. And there's the internal purity, or it is called Abhayantara Saucha, if I'm saying that right. Abhyantara. Abhayantara Saucha, which means that the internal purification, internal purity of all entire five, the thought, emotion, memory, desire, energy, yes, of thoughts, emotions, motives, prana, the purification. But to get to that purification of the inner mental activity, the senses need to be placed in a certain boundary. Otherwise it won't happen. It's just not going to happen. And this is the tricky part. How do we do that, and what can be done in this? Well, we already know, we've talked about this before, whatever we see gets recorded in our mind. So we have to make a distinction. What should be seen that will keep the mind pure? Now, first of all, the concept of purity needs to be clear. Purity. Let's just use an analogy. You take water, distilled water or purified water. Impurities are removed from there. We use a Brita filter, right? Impurities removed. So we should know the difference between impurity and purity, or what are those factors that are causing impurity. See, the word is purity, and this is not a word that people use very often. We talk about mind being stable and life being harmonious and things like that. Yeah, balanced, yes. What about purified? What is that? What is that actually? Well, that's a tricky question in one sense, because we are exposed to all kinds of experiences throughout the whole day, throughout weeks and years. But to bring the five senses into a boundary for the purpose of purification, that we want to purify the input coming into the mind and purify the mind itself, the content that is already there. So 2 points we need to focus on for Saucha. That is the purification of what is happening today. Because all we have is today, all we have is the present moment. Each hour that flows is the input, the highest quality input through the senses into the antakarana. Ye prashna hai. We need to ask this question, all of us, day by day. I mean, hour by hour, literally 1 hour at a time. 1 hour at a time, ask this question. Right now it's, let's say 8:33. So let's say I say from 9 o'clock or to 10 o'clock, is Sachin's activity going to be such, it's going to be in such a way that all five senses are going to remain in a purified state. Well, you see, that's a big thing, right? It's not a small thing. My God, how do I do that? Then I put on something on TV, or I talk to someone, or whatever it might be. I have to make a decision. Is my interaction with the outside world going to be a purified interaction? Or is it going to cause some type of internal contaminant coming inside? It's a difficult thing because we need to live in the external world. I mean, I just give an example of, this the TV shows that we all watch, right? We watch news and we watch Netflix and Hulu and this YouTube videos and all those kinds of things. Okay. We're going to wind up watching all kinds of stuff, but there still needs to be viveka. What ought to be watched? Because once we watch it, we cannot remove that from our mind. Once we hear it, it's not going to go from our mind. It's going to be inputted there permanently. It's a permanent imprint. And then that's where Patanjali says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, that now that Chitta Vritti that is coming from all those imprints, that needs to be settled down. So it becomes very hard to do that when there's constant stimuli coming that is causing all kinds of disturbance and mixture from inside. That is why Patanjali is talking about Saucha. That's the whole reason behind that. Otherwise there's no way to really stabilize, purify, clarify, or make the mind lucid, make our path clear towards Paramatma. Without Saucha, how is it possible? Our mind is cluttered, and it just rolls around, right? So the process here is to first decide what kind of interaction Sachin is to have in the next hour that is going to keep my senses in a purified interaction so that the stimuli, the experience coming into the mind is going to be the best quality experience that will eventually keep the mind stable, stabilized, harmonized, and eventually open the doorway further into higher realization. I hope this is clear. Because without doing this, there's no chance of the realization of the Atman. Atma ka gyan, Bhagwan ki ichha or Bhagwan ka sakshatkar, ye sab nahi ho sakta until we do this. That doesn't mean we're living an isolated life. That's not what that means. It doesn't mean one is cutting everything off and just sitting inside some cave or some temple. No. We are living in the midst of the world. It also doesn't mean just to suppress your desires and not do anything in the world. That's not what all that means. It is a decision about purification. Saucha. The word is Saucha. Bahya Saucha and Abhayantara Saucha. I have to see the Sanskrit of that. This is written in English here. That's why. It's the internal purification. I have to ask, this is a contemplative question. This is not so easy, to say, okay, I want to live a purified life. What does that even, how do you do that actually? We are living in this multiple interactions of this sansar, of this world, my God. It's a question, start with the body, the environment, the habits, and then to say, I want to purify. Shuddha karna, man shuddha karna hai. That's amazing, right? And so the 9 forms of devotion, Bhagwan ki jo Navdha Bhakti hai, that we have talked about before in the past recordings, those 9 forms of devotions are a purifier. They purify what is already inside our antakarana, inside the mental framework. Yes. But to stop the pollutant from coming in is essential. How can I purify my mind if I'm adding polluted material inside my mind? Isn't it so? And I have to see what is that polluted material. It's not easy. As one progresses in bhakti, as one progresses further in bhakti, there is what is called the higher taste. It is the experience of higher sukha, for that comes from devotion, higher contemplation, higher ideals. The desire would be to watch more science documentaries and those kinds of things, more philosophical study, because there's a continuum, to listen to more refined type of music. Because the more gross level of activity feels like a distortion. It happens, I'll give you an example. It happens like in people who are deeply involved in, let's say, this classical music, Western or Eastern. They love so much, they're so gotten used to that. So if they hear regular Hindi songs or regular rock songs or whatever, just pop songs, they say, what is this? Ye sab noise jaisa lagta hai. Right? Isn't it so? It happens like this. But people who are used to that, they say, what is this classical? It's so boring, turn this thing off. After 2-3 minutes, it bahut ho gaya. I need to have strong beats and dance music and this and that. Isn't it so? There's no criticism of anything. But it's a question of the higher taste. When a higher taste comes, when there is a greater joy that is discovered, the lower automatically subsides. That is one way to understand this. But this is a difficult thing to try to do, because our mind is going to record everything that happens. That is why we do pujan, archan, havan, bhajan, kirtan. We do 45 minutes or more of mantras every day. Ganesh mantra, Durga Chalisa, Hanuman Chalisa, other ashtaks and all the. Why we do that every day? So our manas is purified with those vibrations, with those ideas, with those mantras, because they will act to purify what is inside the mental framework, all the way into the chakra system. The mantras go all the way into the chakra system, all the way deep inside of us. That's why we do 40-50 minutes or 45 minutes every day. This is the reason why. This is one of the reasons why. But then, after all of this activity is done, still a decision has to be made. Sachin has to decide, what am I going to do for the next hour? Is it going to keep my internal world purified? Is it going to take me further in the yogic process towards Paramatma, if that's what I want? Because if my destination is Narayana, if my destination is Bhagwan, is living liberation, if that is the destination, Jivan Mukti, obviously physical hygiene, right kind of diet, the postures that we're sitting in, the bodily postures, all of those things need to be very, very evolved. Purification removes what obstructs natural radiance of consciousness. Our natural radiant consciousness, which is inside the Antakarana, which is the Atma Tattva itself, that is who we actually are. That is what we are trying to open and discover. So toxins, clutter, agitation, and sensory access need to be understood and need to be put aside. Otherwise, we can never, under any circumstances, get to that point of natural radiance of consciousness. I hope this is clear. Just as our body, the food we eat. What is food? Why is food there? Food is there for health. Is there pleasure in that? Yes. Of course there is. But that pleasure is a limited phenomena as a motivator to eat food. Just seeking that pleasure and stimuli is not an answer. It is not going to be helpful. It will be harmful. Because most people today in today's world are overeating, and they're eating items that are just, creating some emotional comfort food, things like that. Its body is a mechanism. It's a machine. It's not a junkyard. Like a garbage can. Is this a garbage can to be throw anything inside here? थोड़ा विचार करना चाहिए कि हम क्या कर रहे हैं जीवन में. What we're putting inside this body physically, right? This is one question. What are we putting inside our mind? That's another relevant, equally important question. Through our eyes, through our ears, through our nose, through our touch, through our tongue. What is going inside there? You see, so just as cleaning soot, S-O-O-T, from a lantern allows its flame to shine clearly, Saucha removes psychic residues that obscure awareness. It means that the process of Saucha, purification, it removes the psychological residues. All kinds of things are stored inside. Experiences that are causing distortion. It puts them aside. It cleans them up. It's a subtle process. But this is where the mantra sadhana is one part of the solution. We can do mantra sadhana, but then the 5 senses have to be placed within a boundary. It's a boundary that is set by the sadhak, by the spiritual aspirant for liberation. Boundary honi hi chahiye jeevan mein. Boundary nahi rakhenge, we cannot reach that Saucha state. It's not going to happen. Mukta sthiti bhi nahi aa sakti isme se. Now, but that boundary doesn't mean suppression. It doesn't mean you're cutting yourself off completely. It is a viveka boundary. Viveka meaning I'm going to put this much interaction inside my mind, but other things I'm not going to put inside. And you know what they say, out of sight, out of mind. Things that we don't put inside our mind, we don't think about that much. Yeah, do we need to watch news and all that? To some extent, know what's going on or just get an overview of what's happening. There's so much violence, so much negative stories, itna klesh, dvesh. Yeah, we need to know. We can also look it up on, just as a summary bullet points. You know what's going on. That the same thing they're going to be talking for 1 hour, 2 hours. And it's good. You may need to know all that. But there's a limit, right? Because, and for example, if Sachin watches 1 hour of news, CNN, Fox, or MSNBC, or something like that, I watch 1 hour of it. Fine, mind needs stimuli also. But all of those people, all of those images, all of those stories are permanently recorded inside my mind. What do I do with that? Is that what I want? I have to ask myself, who do I want living inside of me? Do I want all these news anchors and actors and actresses and whatever the big actors are throughout the world, and all this, do I want them living inside of me? Have you ever thought about this question? Because they live inside. It's incredible. Or do we want, who do we want living inside? What do we want? We need to interact with the world. We need to get input from the world, yes. But that interaction without entangled internalization is really self-mastery. Interaction without entangled internalization. Because when we interact, it's going to come inside. There's no choice. But there is a way to keep oneself in a state of awareness that, I'm experiencing this. It is in my memory. But I am not stuck with any of it. Now, how exactly that happens, it's a very big discussion. We don't have time today to start that. That is something we'll talk about in the Angel Wing program next year. In Angel Wing program, I encourage everybody to attend every Tuesday at 8 p.m. starting like next week if possible. But if you do it next year, that's what this subject is going to be about all next year. Is going to be about self-mastery, how to open this door. How is it possible to have, Sachin can watch a 15-minute news show, I can remember it, think about it, get the wisdom or knowledge or whatever I need from that, and at the same time, not get stuck with it internally where those memories are left in memories, but they are not disturbing my path towards God. I hope this question is clear. You see, most people have not thought about these things. Or if they have, it's only in a very limited way. बहुत मनन कीजिए इस पर. This is a very, very, very relevant question in life for everybody. If we want our inner space to be brimming with jnana, with wisdom, with bhakti, with high saintly qualities, the 64 qualities of saints. If we want that, antakaran to bahut shuddha hona chahiye. It's obviously obvious. You cannot have contaminants in there. It's like, someone who wants to go into I just use the space station analogy. Somebody who's sitting in the space shuttle, the whole environment inside the space shuttle, they have to decontaminate everything. The astronauts have to be trained, and the body cannot be contaminated. Everything, the suits are worn. So much is required. Then the space shuttle takes off. Then it goes into the space station. It docks there. The space station is filled with all kinds of purified air, all that kind of stuff. You cannot have contaminants. नहीं चलेगा, वहां जा ही नहीं सकते. It's like that with the internal contaminants that the sansar is providing. Because sansar mein bahut aisa hai, but not everything is like that. Only some things are like that, but we have so much absorption in that. It's a contaminant. For example, take the political situation in the world today. Anytime you open the subject of politics, there's all kinds of arguments, debates. People hate this person, like this person. I won't give any names. Jo bhi hai. We know what that shows. How much of our mind is occupied with all that trash. Yeah, you need to know what's going on in the world, political situation. इसमें से कल्याण होगा? क्या होगा? प्रार्थना कीजिए सबके लिए. Which is better? Sachin taking this mala, understand what's happening in the world today. It takes only 5 minutes. Doesn't take more than that. 5-10 minutes. Get an overview. Too much re-rolling in that again and again is not going to be helpful. Understand it, know what it is, depending on the situation in life. Understand it, know what's going on, learn a lot of good things from others, no doubt. But just to keep that agitation inside, keep stimuli again going. No. Prarthna karo. Take this mala and Bhagwan ka naam lo no. And you can do prayer for all those people. Once you know what is happening, what is the point in repeating that again and again and again and again? See how difficult it is. We're addicted to this stuff. You see, so this is the problem. And this is where the mind cannot be purified. We're constantly bombarding it with this stimuli. You see, so the impurity can be removed. When impurities are removed, clarity naturally arises. Not as addition, but as revelation. Clarity is already there. Clarity meaning clear vision. It's just clear. It's like saying the pure water. The water is already pure. When the impurities are removed, it's what is there remains. So the mind becomes a polished mirror. The word is darpan, D-A-R-P-A, and darpan means mirror. Polished mirror reflecting the self with a capital S, the Atman, without distortion. That's our goal. The Atmagnan, Atma ka jo prakash hai, divya anubhuti, uska reflection hota hai, uska anubhav hota hai. Wo anand hai, that is a divinity. But it's not going to happen until this purification. This is an essential step. Essential step. Now, what is the experience? One feels lighter. One doesn't carry the burden. The mind-brain-body connection. All of these inputs that we're putting inside, it has a direct impact on the physiology of the body. We become more transparent in life. We become less reactive in life. The desire aspect, ichhas, lose their urgency because the field of perception is clear. Just the desires people are activating so many desires because of this disturbances inside. They want to get away from them. Very, very interesting. There's a lot to be said about this. In yogic physiology, Saucha is intimately tied to prana also, vital life force, and the nadi system, the subtle channels. Impurities, physical toxins, emotional turbulence, mental clutter causes blockages in energy flow, producing fatigue and dullness. Fatigue, dullness. These are blockages in energy flow. Right? So, Saucha is that purification in yogic physiology where our prana, our vital life force, is purified. Our nadi system is purified. Nadi system are subtle channels of Shakti. Because there are the blockages there. So when purity is restored, see this point. Purity needs to be restored. Prana circulates freely. increasing vitality and perceptual acuity. So increase of vitality, increase of pranic flow, our experience of life is better. Then we can do bhakti. Bhakti ऐसी होती है. Bhakti opens in its real sense when the mind is in Shuddha Sattva Gun. This is another way to put all this. Sattvic Gun, Sattva Gun. Perceptual acuity. So think of it this way. Just as stagnated or stagnant water breeds disease. You understand? Water that's just not moving at all. There's a lot of bugs and bacteria and everything that happens. Stagnant energy breeds confusion. Energy has to be flowing, has to be dynamic. We cannot be stagnated in life. It's very bad for us. It causes confusion. It causes lack of clarity. Be active. Physically active, active in devotion, active in family life, active in all areas of life, with purity, with clarity. So purity, the quality, the purification process itself restores flow of Shakti. I hope this is clear. The Shakti that is inside the body, mind, senses, Antakarana, bahut Shakti hai. It restores its flow, and that connects with brahmacharya and other things that we've talked about in past recordings. It all connects together. Sachin's ki itni prarthna hai, only this much, only prarthna sab aap sab ke liye for the whole world. Try to apply these ideas in your own way. Find out. You'll know. We will know automatically that if I have certain conversation with a friend, certain distorted conversation, I'll know that. It'll stay on my head. I had this conversation about somebody else with this guy, with this person. I shouldn't have said this. This person said this. We said something about somebody else. We feel it inside. Isn't it so? हमारे मन में ऐसा होता है. Why did I say this? Why did I say this negative thing, or even think something negative about somebody, or talk back about somebody? Back talking and all this kind of thing goes on. It happens across life. In our immediate family it can happen. It can happen at work. Somebody said something at work and we are so upset and disturbed, and this and that can happen. Or we say something out of our strong emotion. Take it easy. Don't talk too much. I'm telling myself this thing, not telling this to anybody else. Don't talk too much. Too much talking causes a lot of trouble. In Gujarati, beautiful saying in satsang, we have heard many times, Vani che e ghee ni pethe vaparvi. Use your language as we use ghee. We don't put loads of ghee inside khichdi, inside the food item. We put one spoonful, one tablespoon like this. Use language as we use this clarified butter. Pani ni pete nahi, pan doodh, pan ghee ni pete. See, these are practical things to understand about Saucha. Our entire energy system is affected in everything we do. In everything we do. So in yogic physiology, the 2 points. Vital life force, prana begins to open properly. And nadi system is unblocked. 2 things happen in this. Right? There's amazing. There's a lot to be said. Saucha is the removal of impurities, of course, by cleansing, by cleanliness. There is the arise. One begins to recognize that just running after sensory enjoyments is a type of impurity. That one realizes this. Impure लगता है. You can feel that this is a distorted, ये आहार शुद्ध नहीं है. It's like if you have like a rice dish, any rice dish, but somebody has, you know that there's dirt particles in there. You say, ye kya hai? What is this? You go to a restaurant and the waiter brings that beautifully made vegetable biryani, let's say, and then the waiter goes outside and brings 1 teaspoonful of dirt and says, add this to this. Say, what the heck are you doing? This is what we do. We meaning humanity. We add dirt inside our mind. And we will know what that is, that impurity, once we recognize that, oh my God, this thing doesn't belong here. Mana mandir na khune khune thi kachro kaadi nak jo. From the inside space, remove the disturbance. But don't add them, first of all. Don't add dirt. Can we eat food that is contaminated? When we eat food, we know we have smell. We know already if it is spoiled or not. What is this? We could throw it away. But we don't do that with other senses. What we're listening, what we're seeing. We don't do that with other senses. What we're touching, who we are touching, all that kind of stuff, one has to be very careful. That is it causing disturbances inside? Is it causing impurity inside? And what is going to happen in my inner world because of that? You see, so this is why there are so many mental health problems, so many relationship problems. Because the antakarana has become distorted, and it has gotten inputs inside there of material that should not be there. And that is what's causing the mind to keep itself rolling around continuously, active at nighttime and other times throughout the day, to deal with all that trash. Think of what happens in the body. We eat something that we shouldn't have eaten. Spoiled food. The stomach has a hard time dealing with that. Either it has to digest it somehow, or it has to vomit it out somehow. And it can be, and sometimes if it's a poisonous thing eaten, you have to go to poison control. Right? Isn't it so? This is a physical thing we understand. But the subtle, the panch jnanindriya, kacha shuddhata, that is absolutely essential. And once we recognize this, hour to hour, in closing today, only one prarthana is there. Go 1 hour at a time. What am I going to do in the next hour? Is my interaction taking me forward, or is it taking me backwards? Okay, let's stop here for now. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakarishu Sarvada Om Ganganapate Namaha Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Guru Deva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sarva Mangala Mangalle Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanitrambake Devi Narayani Namosute Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Mahalakshmi Rupena Saumsita Namastasya Namo Namah Om Hrim Swaha Shri Radha Krishna Arpanamastu.